Hi, welcome to my channel and thanks for clicking on the video. My name's Sean, I'm a real estate agent in Cape Town. And today we're going to be going through the pros and cons of living in Cape Town from somebody who actually does live here. Cape Town's seen as a great travel destination and for good reason. It's absolutely amazing, golden beaches, beautiful mountains, Instagram living at its finest. In fact, a recent report by a travel publication had some interesting findings, and I'll go through those a little bit later in the video, so keep watching to find out about those. I guess the main thing is though that everywhere has its pros and its cons, and Cape Town is no different. There are some cons to living here. Before we get into that though, do hit the like button if you find the video helpful in any way, and hit the subscribe and the bell for notifications to keep updated on more videos about the property market in Cape Town and what living in Cape Town has to offer. And if you or somebody you do know is thinking of making a move into Cape Town or around Cape Town, you'll find my WhatsApp details, my contact number and my email address down in the description. You can hit any of the links to reach out to me. I would love to help. Okay, let's go. I'll start with the cons. It's always nice to finish on the happy, smiley positives. So we'll look at what is maybe not so great about living in Cape Town. So firstly, the price of property does tend to be a little bit higher than other places in South Africa. You tend to find in coastal cities, property prices are a little bit higher. In cities that are larger, because of the demand for property, prices are higher still. And both of those things are very true for Cape Town. We've got added demand from people moving from other areas in South Africa to Cape Town for the lifestyle, and people moving from other places in the world to Cape Town. It's seen as a wonderful destination. There are great schools here. You get to live the beach and mountain lifestyle, and the service delivery is second to none in South Africa. So there's a lot of demand for property in Cape Town. The geographic area also means that we're quite limited in terms of space and growing the number of properties available. So while there is always some strong demand, we don't always have the right number of properties to meet that demand, and so you tend to find that prices do go up, and that's both for buying and selling. So that is one negative. If you are going to be buying in Cape Town, be aware that you might need to pay a little bit more for the same thing as in other places. Now, one thing that's always mentioned to me is cliques. Cape Town is very cliquey. It's difficult to break in, it's difficult to make friends. And I think while that might be true to an extent, it might not be for the reasons people think. I mentioned the schools a little bit earlier. There is a very strong old boys and old girls network around the schools in Cape Town and around some of the universities as well. People make very strong friendships through those institutions, and those carry on into adulthood and through life. And people tend to be doing quite a lot in Cape Town. I mentioned there's the mountains, there's the beaches, there's places not far outside of Cape Town where people go to enjoy themselves. So people are living busy lifestyles, active lifestyles, and they tend to do those things with the friend groups that they've created, not necessarily looking to make new friends. And so it can be a little bit difficult to break in. What I would say to anyone moving to Cape Town though is find your community. Find people who enjoy doing the things that you do. It might be within the neighborhood that you move into. You might join some civic organizations. It might be joining a cycling club or a mountain club, something along those lines. That's a great way to meet people and to get involved in the community with people who do things that you enjoy doing as well. Public transport in Cape Town is not fantastic. The rail infrastructure and the services around those has crumbled and gone backwards a little bit, and so it does tend to be difficult to get around Cape Town. Having lived in London myself for a little while, where I didn't even own a car, I could take a bus, I could take a train, I could pretty much get to wherever I wanted to go. Things are a little bit more difficult in Cape Town, so don't rely on public transport. The city is making moves to improve that, and the bus services that they are putting in place are rolling out further afield. They are trying to fix the train services, but it's not where it could be. So where you might want to get a bus, you might have to rather look at a taxi or an Uber service instead. Where you might want to use a train, you might find that there's no train running, and again, you'll have to look at an alternative. So just be aware that Cape Town as an area to live, it's probably easier to do if you do have access to your own transport, a car or a bike or something of that nature. The weather. Everyone loves talking about the weather. So Cape Town's weather in winter is not great. It is cold and it also has winter rainfall. That means it's wet as well. So you always take your brolly with you, you always take a jacket or rain jacket with you, and you bundle up nice and warm. It is not the best time to be in Cape Town. Something else which leans a little bit more towards the tragic, I would say, is the inequality that you do find in Cape Town. If you travel in through the M2, maybe you take a plane into Cape Town International Airport and travel into Cape Town itself, or you take a number of the other routes between some of the major centers, you'll typically find people living in shacks on the outskirts of the city, and it is a major problem in Cape Town. There is quite a bit of inequality. It's something that the government here is working to address, but it is something that is going to take an extended period of time to fix up. All I can say to anyone moving into Cape Town is try and get involved in some of the civic organizations, some of the NGOs that do good work in these areas. Try to see if you can make a small difference, even if it's a tiny little one, even if it's a little donation every so often. And we'll find that as we get a groundswell of support for these civic organizations, for these NGOs, we'll start to make more and more of a difference. And lastly, cold water. I grew up in the Eastern Cape in East London. The water there was warm most of the year round. You could jump into the water without a wetsuit and it was fine. Over here, not so much. False Bay you can go into and it's generally a bit warmer than the Atlantic seaboard, but once you do hit that Atlantic seaboard ocean, so we're talking Camps Bay, we're talking the West Coast, it is icy. You probably cannot spend too much time in the water, and if you did want to, you'd probably need to take a wetsuit. So that is one of the downsides. The beaches are amazing, but the water, maybe you don't want to get into so much. Right, and as I said, I wanted to end off on the positives, the happy, fuzzy feeling positives. It's always good to end off like that. Before we get there though, I mentioned that one of the travel publications had put together a report, and Cape Town actually came out as the 11th best city in the world to live in. And I certainly wouldn't be living here still if it was all cons. So there are quite a few positives to Cape Town. In fact, in that report that they did, Cape Town was the top place to relax in. Now, if you work in Cape Town, maybe it's not as relaxing as everyone who's traveling through the area, but there are certainly things you can do outside of work that are very relaxing and help take your mind off some of the stresses of daily life. It was also ranked as the second most beautiful city in the world, and for good reason. And then it was ranked as the third best for things to do. So there are tons of activities in Cape Town. You can do pretty much anything under the sun. And then it was also very highly ranked for food and drinks. Right, so let's get into the pros properly. So firstly, I mentioned the schools before. It's part of the reason people move down. There are great schools. Wherever you end up living in Cape Town, there is a really good school just around the corner. So from that point of view, it is not a bad place to be. And if you're thinking of bringing up kids, that's a great place to consider. You also have an incredible amount of choice, not just from a schooling point of view, but from an activity point of view. You've got the beach, you've got lakes, you've got mountains, you've got places within 45 minutes to an hour and a half outside of Cape Town, which offer you a variety of things to do. When it comes to food, you've got the winelands, you've got local produce, you've got fish, you've got beef, you've got everything under the sun. So it offers an amazing variety of choice. And as we already know, the government in the Western Cape and Cape Town in particular is doing a very good job. Service delivery is second to none here. If you report an issue or need something resolved, they typically will get to it within 24 to 48 hours, if not quicker. And it's really set the example and the benchmark for other cities in South Africa. Something else that maybe isn't recognized as much is the medical system in Cape Town. It is, and historically has been, one of the top medical destinations, if I can call it that, in South Africa. We've got very strong schooling and tertiary institutions that cater to training really good doctors. And we've got highly skilled professionals in that field. In fact, people travel from around the world to South Africa to come and get medical procedures done in Cape Town. So it's a fantastic place. If you're looking at medical care for the long term, it is not a bad place to be. That being said, a lot of the top medical institutions, they are private, so just consider that in terms of your costs. It is always good to have some kind of medical aid or health insurance. So I mentioned public transport before, and while that isn't great, if you do have a car, Cape Town is actually really easy to get around in. If you jump onto the highways, you can head up north or into the city bowl or head down south very, very easily. Things aren't that far away. To give you a sense of distance, if you're in the center of Cape Town and you wanted to travel out to somewhere like Stellenbosch, that's only going to take you about 45 minutes, and that's another town a fair distance away. Most of Cape Town itself is probably reachable within 25 minutes to half an hour, and you can go from one beach on the False Bay coast to another beach on the West Coast Peninsula in 30 minutes. So it is really easy to get around. Although there is a caveat. Traffic in the mornings and the afternoons can be a bit of a nightmare, particularly if you're going into or out of the city at those times. But outside of those times, it really is easy to get around. And lastly, the weather. So I spoke about the weather before as a con, and in winter it really is. It's cold and it's wet. It's not nice. But there are times in the year where it is absolutely beautiful. Autumn and spring, you tend to find there's very little wind and the days are fairly mild. It is a great time to be out and about in Cape Town. Summer is also amazing. It can get a bit hot though, and you do tend to find that as you head into the afternoons, it does get a little bit windy. So just plan your days accordingly. If you are going to be out and about, do those things earlier in the morning. Head to the beach early in the morning, head up the mountain early in the morning, avoid the heat of the day and avoid the wind in the afternoons. So that's Cape Town. I hope you enjoyed it. For me, there are definitely more pros than cons to living in Cape Town. As I said, otherwise I wouldn't be here anymore. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe and the bell for notifications to keep updated on more videos like this. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.